Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second TA2 Virtual Q&A session. And today is Monday, February the 3rd, 2025. My name is Jeff Peterson. I'm your MEC president with AFA Alaska. I have been MEC-B since 2011, and I have been a flight attendant since 1999. I am based in San Diego.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Morrow. I am a member of the negotiating team. I am based in San Diego, and I've been a flight attendant since 1984.
And good morning. I am Bryce McGee. I am also based in San Diego. I've been a flight attendant since 2006, San Diego president, and newly elected MEC vice president.
Hi, my name is James Bozanich. I'm San Diego based, also a member of the negotiating committee, and I've been a flight attendant since 2009.
Hi, I am Kiara Jenkins. I have been a flight attendant since 2011, and I am also a negotiating committee member who is Seattle based.
Hi, I'm Paula Mastrangelo. I'm a senior staff negotiator with AFA. I started negotiating contracts with AFA in 1988. I've negotiated several Alaska contracts and was happy to be back assisting your team with this latest TA2.
All right, and then rounding out our negotiating committee support team, I'd like to have Justin, Samantha, and Brian introduce themselves and what they are doing here today in support of the negotiating committee.
Good morning. I'm Justin Weatherall, a San Diego-based flight attendant. I've been here about 10 years, and I am your negotiation strategic communications representative. I'm here supporting the committee, pulling up resources, and working on our FAQs.
I'm Samantha Wolf. I'm the MEC Mobilization Chairperson. I'm San Diego based, and I've been here since 2011. And I'm here assisting with note writing and also with FAQs to get some more extra materials out to the membership.
And I'm Brian Palmer. I'm MEC Vice President. I'm here for technical support, and I'll be today's moderator.
If you haven't already checked out our website, you need to do that at contract2022.afaalaska.org, and the TA2 webpage or page is on /TA2. So contract2022.afaalaska.org/TA2. You'll find all sorts of resources on that page, including the text of the agreement, the summaries, there's videos, link to the boarding calculator, all sorts of fun stuff for you to see.
Also, just a reminder, polls open February 11th and they close February 28th.
All right, it looks like we have some of our first questions coming in. Our first question's from Melissa. Explain what happened with the red circle and what it means for flight attendant seniority with the Legacy Virgin and Legacy Alaska flight attendants.
Yeah, so with the red circles, I wasn't here for the JCBA, but I was obviously part of the Virgin America group. Basically what it was is, so at Virgin America, if you were to change, let's say you were hired as a CSA and then you were to transfer over to in-flight, your occupational seniority would start at your hire date for in-flight, but your pay would be based upon years of service with the company. And that's how Virgin America did it. At Alaska, whenever you transfer positions, you basically resign from that position and then you get rehired, and your occupational seniority as well as your step rate starts again. So with the red circles, and I wasn't here during JCBA, so if anyone wants to add some context to that, but basically what the Virgins were frozen in terms of their pay until they got caught up with where they should have been, had their hire date been where their years caught up from where they had been a flight attendant to where they should be at their relative seniority for pay. They were basically frozen at their pay rates. I believe September of this year, actually, the red circle dates are no longer applicable anyways. It was just kind of because I think that was in the last one was. So it's basically not effective anymore. But that's the theory behind why that happened. But it's just we had to leave it in just for the carryover of what of those that were still the few people that were left that were still red circled.
Yeah, so it didn't actually change bidding seniority. It was a pay thing that we didn't dock them pay for coming over to Alaska, that they kept at their pay rate based on their company years of service. And all of the everyone's caught up. So the red circle LOA has dropped out for this TA.
Yeah, the reason it was in TA1 is because it's still applied, but now that's gone.
All right, our next question is from Shirley. Can a line holder pick up an ER day from a reserve and get the 2 times pay?
No. So the conversion pay for double time only qualifies when crew scheduling actually converts the reserve to ER. So if a line holder picks up a single duty day, it just becomes ER. It's not really technically a conversion. That's just how the language is written. When you pick up a day, it will be ER. And all line holders know that going into picking up a single reserve days. So the double time pay is only applicable if you are converted by crew scheduling from either AM or PM to ER reserve.
All right, our next question is from Taylor. Can you explain section 8-7R, notification of delay or cancellation, with a hypothetical way that this would be triggered?
Yeah, this snowstorm is a great example of a hypothetical that could happen. Let's say you are San Diego based, you're coming up. There were tons of delays yesterday evening. And in advance, crew scheduling knew that your departing aircraft tomorrow, which would effectively be today, was going to get caught up somewhere else in the system. They knew that aircraft would not be positioned on time and that you are now going to post a 4-hour delay. Operations has already made that determination. If they know that, they are required to inform you prior to, I think there's an amount of time. I think it's within an hour after, 1 hour from block-in. So they'll make contact, they'll reach out. As long as they do their duty to reach out and contact, you are not required once you left the aircraft, but they need to fulfill their portion of the agreement to actually reach out to the flight attendants, let them know that their outgoing aircraft will be delayed for the following day or the following duty period. If that doesn't happen and the delay has been posted, the flight attendant qualifies for the premium.
Sorry, just to clarify, I just reread the language. It's 2 hours from block-in, but it's delayed by an hour. Yeah, sorry.
2 hours. So they have to notify you within 2 hours of block-in.
All right, our next question is from Donnell. How much of vacation and boarding pay goes towards the 480 minimums for insurance and vacation accruals?
Oh yeah, I can handle that one. So vacation is a quarter of your vacation entitlement from the previous year goes towards the 480. And this is in terms of the 480 for vacation. I think this is like what the question is actually asking about. There are several different 480s. There's the 480 qualifications for healthcare, for vacation, for say uniform allotment would be some of the prime examples. There's also some applications for record improvement, but this question usually focuses on vacation, so that's what I'll focus on, and I'll move to the other ones. Quarter of your vacation from the previous year goes towards vacation, and then all of the boarding pay. Actually, none of the boarding pay will go towards vacation. All the boarding pay goes towards healthcare, and all of your vacation goes towards your healthcare, regardless of whether you accrued it or not. And we have a nice table for this. Oh, thank you. There we go. So you see sick leave, vacation, boarding, and then that's what accrues. And then we have the different categories: insurance, vacation, uniform, or record improvement. So insurance, everything counts, including with vacation, whether you accrued it or not. For vacation, no, quarter of vacation, and then no for boarding. Uniform is yes for sick leave, yes for vacation, yes for boarding. Record improvement, no, yes, no. And do we have this posted somewhere? Nope, we don't.
Not yet.
yet.
Justin has been
Not
working
yet.
on this diligently. Our benefits chair, Kathy O'Malley, just reviewed it a couple of days ago. So we are going back to our subject matter experts, making sure all of our charts are 100%. And so this is a chart that will be available shortly.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Chrissy. Can you please explain how the point reduction system will change?
Yeah, I can take that one. So for 2025, you still will have 4 quarterly point reductions. And in 2026, it will be reduced to 3 point reductions per year. And also the state sick bank will be activated. Actually, it will be activated before too long, within the next couple of months. So flight attendants will have the ability to accrue state sick leave in their banks, which gives them the flexibility to call in and not use a point reduction form in order to have no attendance points associated with the sick call.
I'm going to take a real quick segue back to the previous question. We have kind of a follow-up question from Victoria. Is the 1 quarter of vacation credit towards the hard 480 going to be in place for 2025?
Well, it's in place for this year that you're accruing it for next year, 2026, but not for 2025. So if you won't get your vacation, you will not get your vacation restored, I guess, if it's being pulled back at this point.
Great. Next question is from Shirley. What are improvements in TA2 for Deadhead?
James, you want this one? There's surface deadhead and
Yeah, so I guess the question really is are you wanting to know the overall improvements total for Deadhead, or are you wanting to know what was changed in TA2? So because we did have a lot of enhancements from current book into TA1 to TA1, which then carried over to TA2. So let me I have the contract pulled up. Give me 1 second. I think the biggest win here was there's no longer scheduled or unscheduled deadheads. So basically, regardless of if you have a pairing with a deadhead on it and it converts to operate, it's time and a half for that. It doesn't matter when that was actually when that actually happened, either before with the bid or if it picked up after the fact. So basically, clarification on adding non-bumpable positive space seats at the time of booking. Flight attendants required to return to their home sequel's domicile at the completion of their sequence, and the deadhead must be scheduled. We have okay, so any flights over 4 hours, it's required that the company actually books you a seat. So it's a confirmed seat. It's not jump seat related. However, if it's any flight that's under 4 hours, if they cannot provide you a seat for that flight, you get 1.5 times the leg if you're put into the jump seat. Deadhead language also, we had clarification of exactly where you could be placed. So basically, preferential seating for deadheads, they need to be booked in those seats at time of the deadhead is created. And then for surface deadheads, the significant enhancements here was 0.5 TFP period. Didn't matter the distance. And so we know a big pain point is San Diego to Los Angeles. That's a 2.5-hour drive, maybe even longer. So what we did secure as the big thing in surface deadheads was you're going to get paid 0.75 TFP per hour with a minimum of 1 TFP. So I believe that San Diego to LA should be paid at 1.75 TFP now versus 0.5. So that's a significant enhancement there. Yeah. So in terms of just going from TA1 to TA2, oh yeah, another thing we added here was it used to be that if you were on a Horizon or a SkyWest flight, in lieu of a meal, you can still pre-order a meal on your flight when you're deadheading. That's not changing. But on these shorter hops where you have a SkyWest or a Horizon flight, it used to be $5 in lieu of a complimentary meal. We upped that to $8. So that's another change there. And one other thing that's kind of a niche case is if you have a reassignment to a later flight and you were supposed to deadhead and you're reassigned to a later flight with the same city pair that you're operating, there was kind of like this hole where you could be converted to operate from deadhead, but because it wasn't the same flight, there wasn't deadhead pay associated with that. So we went back and we fixed that so that If you're converted to a deadhead in this reassignment situation that would be exempt from reassignment pay, you still get the deadhead conversion pay. So that was like the most significant. That and the $8 were the two main things that changed with TA2. But again, there was significant enhancements from current book and TA1 that we just carried over into TA2. So the comprehensive summary book will show you all that.
All right, we have a question from Charles. When can we expect to address red-eye flights and extra pay and the less than desirable pairings, such as the Guadalajara, where you fly, sit for 2 hours, and then fly the red-eye and then day sleep?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be JNC kind of responsibility. They're going to have to look at the overall pictures during negotiations. Even in the time that we were negotiating, the makeup of red-eye pairing significantly changed from just going to the ends of TA1 into TA2, and really looking at the makeup of the network and operations. At the end of the day, this is a cost savings thing. The company is trying to move the aircraft. It's really expensive to keep them parked. Therefore, that creates a lot of all-nighter flying. I think at one point in review, the scheduling committee noticed that there was just right around 25% of all-nighter flying in the system, which is incredibly high. All things considered. So I think it is on everybody's radar. It is something that people would like to address at some point. As far as getting rid of them, I think we should be pretty transparent. That's probably not a lift that the negotiating committee is going to be able to conquer. But pay is definitely a way to kind of attack that, make it really expensive to do, maybe kind of drive the algorithm in the pairing builds to move away from all-nighter flying if it can. It's kind of a way that the JNC could strategically try to attack the issue with red eyes. But that's something that's going to be have to be addressed during JCBA.
All right, and the next question is from Victoria. Can you explain the difference in delay pays, block versus ground?
Sure, I can tackle that one. So we did make a change to block delay. Well, technically it's changed to both, but we basically peeled apart block delay in terms of the accrual on block delay. So that is now accrued at 1.11 TFP per block hour, rounded to the nearest tenth. So basically, it's anytime that you have a block greater than scheduled, then that will be paid at 1.11 TFP per block hour. And then the ground delays is no change. It is still the current accrual of 1/2 TFP per hour, rounded to the nearest tenth of a TFP. And both of those still require 11 minutes in order to accrue for the flight.
All right, we have a question from Wendy. Can you please define what positive contact is?
Yeah. Let's see here. We actually have a
I have it pulled up.
perfect. Go for it.
So in 8Q, under the very first paragraph, 8Q1 has a very specific carve out. And I'll just read the contract language. It might be easier that way. For the narrow purposes of contactability and means of notification, positive contact will mean an accepted crew access change notification or a phone conversation between the flight attendant and crew scheduling. Crew scheduling must utilize a company phone number on a recorded line exclusively for the purposes of scheduling related matters, or a conversation in person between an on-duty flight attendant and a company employee, flight attendants and pilots excluded, or contact station personnel exclusively for the purposes of scheduling related matters, or if a reserve on airport standby responds to a scheduling related message within Microsoft Teams or successor systems. Thank you, Justin.
Okay, next question is from Charles. For clarity, TA2 changes are TA1, but some changes from that was not made clear.
Yeah. So TA1 was the base. So whenever we're talking about TA2 specifically, it's like, let's say in the summary of changes, that is assuming that TA1 is the base. So if you're looking at the summary, you can assume that TA1 has been achieved, and then those are the changes from TA1 to TA2 in general.
But I do want to point out on the website, the summary of agreement for TA1 is still available, and it's easily accessible, and you can see the changes that were made in TA1.
All right, we have a question from Elizabeth about surface deadhead. With the surface deadhead now being 0.75 TFP per hour, does that include between co-terminals in Los Angeles? For example, starting a trip in Burbank, but then an unscheduled ending at LAX with a minimum pay of 1 TFP?
Anyone? Kiki?
Yes. Yes, and you'll notice if you go to, I believe 8.0 is the index chart that posts the times between coterms and the applicable pay as well.
Great. Question from Emma going back to about the Deadhead meals. Is the $8 in lieu of a Deadhead meal paid automatically, or do you have to manually put in for it?
It is automatic. They pull the SkyWest and Horizon operated flights that we deadhead on, and that's the chart that they use for that specific schedule.
We have a question from Heather. For reserve notice of time to report, is there a dollar cap on the amount the company will reimburse the reserve if they're called out less than 3 hours to report?
No, not that we no.
No, just it's super important. In-flight management and base supervisors are being trained up over the next month or so on reimbursement approvals. I will be just fully transparent. In the past, we've had issues with receipts and being able to verify them. So it's going to be really, really critical that you have the receipts, you have the name of the place that you parked at, you have the Uber service, the Lyft. Nothing looks, everything looks up and up because they are going to be very critical. They'll be approving the reimbursements, and they might have follow-up questions for you. So make sure you have as much information as possible when you are parking at a specific spot. If it looks like a spot that's going to give you a really hard time reprinting a receipt at any time, I would probably discourage parking at that specific lot. Just go to a lot that looks like it can email you a receipt if you need be, and park there. You also have the option of terminal parking. They can just run your license plate and prove that you were there at that time. So all of those things are available, but just make sure you're being smart about which services you're using.
Yeah, and crew scheduling conversations are always on a recorded line. So if you're called out, it'll be time stamped and very evident that you were called out with less than 3 hours.
And, again, for transparency, it can't be like, oh, I asked my cousin to drop me and I paid him. Like, that's not part of how the language goes. So you need to go to a physical place that can provide you a receipt.
All right, and that was the last question in the queue.
We'll see if anyone submits another one, but can we back up to Elizabeth's question about surface deadhead? So I just want to make sure that there's no confusion about this. So in case anyone's looking at section 28F co-terminals, you'll notice that it does say something different than in 8.0 and also in section 21, the Deadhead section 21. So that is a final example of the Scribner's error, where both parties did not catch that there is a disconnect between the language. Everyone's in agreement that it's the 1 TFP at 0.75 TFP per hour. So we are in talks with management about how to make sure that that particular provision marries up with the other two provisions in the contract. So don't be worried if it says a half a TFP. It is actually the 1 TFP min, 3/4 of a trip per hour, whichever is greater than 2.
Yeah, but it also, if you go over the time scheduled and you have to call crew scheduling. That's really important. One, to get pay, the additional pay, and two, to make sure that your rest is legal. because your duty to your start the next day may have to be adjusted.
Right, and we have a question that's come in from Paula. Can you still have crew scheduling arrange you an Uber if you're notified with less than 3 hours for a reserve assignment?
I always say it never hurts to ask. Worst case scenarios, they're going to tell you no, but especially like, for example, like the snowstorm, it is in their best interest to get you where they need you positioned. So you can always ask crew scheduling if they can book it for you. There's
Yeah,
nothing that's
exactly.
you can't do
I
that.
mean, you're entitled to it with less than 3 hours call out. So a lot of times they have the concierge service or something like that where they can call and arrange for an Uber pickup for you. And then you don't have to pay it out of pocket and get reimbursed.
All right, we have a question from Wendy. Can you clarify where the management discretion language was removed?
Justin, I don't know if do you have easy access to the roadshow? I think we have a slide on management discretion. Or at
Yeah,
least there's a
yeah.
part where it
During the
talks about-
roadshow presentation, that's recorded and online. Excuse me. There's a slide that lists every single incident where management discretion was in the contract. And we've listed them all, and you can go and check out all those sites on the full text TA2 and see what it's been changed to. I will say sometimes management discretion is really positive in the agreement because it gives management the discretion to do things over and above what is demanded, the minimums demanded in the contract. For example, on bereavement leave, flight attendants are allowed X number of paid days off, and that can be increased at management discretion. So we kept the same idea that management will be allowed to go over and above the contract, but removed kind of the actual words management discretion that were kind of triggering to a lot of people.
Yeah, and just to kind of highlight on that, I know that this is this phrase has just become this huge hot button issue, especially during the TA1 kind of discussion online, things like that, in things that we got emailed to us. But as Paul mentioned, I think people fail to realize that if you were to put defined boundaries on a lot of this latitude, it actually inhibits the flight attendant's flexibility and or inhibits the flight attendant from getting extra time off. So if in an event of a serious accident or incident involving an aircraft, the company can choose to extend your leave with pay longer if they view that you need more time. And if we didn't have that flexibility built into the contract, we'd have to have defined walls and fences about you only get 3 days off. And then there's no way to go around that because it's an actually defined time frame. Another thing too is with reassignments and items like that. You know, I've been reassigned before. The company has called me and said, "Hey, I have these 3 other chips that I can put you on. What do you prefer?" And again, that is they're choosing to do that, but that works very favorable in a flight attendants at times because you can choose what you want to do. And so I think we need to somewhat look at this language as a positive thing because there are a lot of instances where it actually does benefit a flight attendant, and we need to have some latitude there so they're able to do things like that.
Yeah, and also it is helpful that you can point to that language that says, you can say to your supervisor or your union representative can say to the supervisor, "Hey, look, it says right in here you have the latitude to extend this, and the flight attendant really needs this." So, oftentimes that's a plus. Basically, it's giving the supervisor permission to do, what is right for the flight attendant.
All right, we have a question from Melissa. How hard will AFA fight for our 4-point reduction forms to stay in our new JCBA?
I know I'm getting this one. Could I get all the JNC questions? I will tell you, actually, Hawaiian has a better whole system rather than your point reduction and everything like that. We were able to enshrine a Hawaiian law that was in force for 1 year before it was revoked. It basically said if you have paid sick leave and you are utilizing paid sick leave, you cannot accrue any attendance points and no discipline can be apportioned because you are using paid sick leave. So they actually have a better system than you do. And of course, in JCBA negotiations, our goal is to get the best of both contracts. So it's absolutely going to be a huge fight because you can imagine the Hawaiian flight attendants don't want your policy. They want what they have. We want to keep what they have. So, so that it's going to be a big fight.
Question from Paula to follow up on that. Can you expand on that Hawaiian law that was revoked and was able to be enshrined in the contract?
Yeah. So basically, when the Hawaiian law went into force, we wrote it into a side letter of agreement. It's called the sick leave side letter. And ever since that happened, oh gosh, years ago, many years ago, over 10 years ago, management has been trying every single contract negotiations to get rid of that letter. In fact, their sole objective, they told us at the outset of bargaining for the last agreement, was because I do Hawaiian negotiations also. Their sole objective, they told us across the table, was to get rid of that side letter, and they were not successful. The side letter marched on and is still in force today.
Right. Question from Tracy going back to paid vacation. Will we receive the 6th week of paid vacation in 2025? Also, will 25% of our vacation be applied to our worked TFP for vacation accrual?
I'll take that one. No, neither provision will be applied until 2026.
And our next question is from Charles. Can you explain the 2 sick banks and how they will be used and points added? And what's the percentage added per bank and how we use it?
I think that if you haven't yet, I would highly suggest to review the sick leave video. It is fully comprehensive and will do way more justice than any like abbreviated version we would be able to do during this session. We can explain the splits. I'll hand that over to Jeff percentage wise. But if you haven't watched that sick leave video, I highly recommend it. Sam did an incredible job putting it together. And even this committee, I probably agrees that there's no way any one of us individually could have done it better than that.
Yeah, can we give somebody the site to go look at all the explanatory videos? I mean, it's really an incredible resource.
In addition to the video, which is amazing, what I've been telling people online is the way that you know sick banks and sick leave doesn't change as far as how you've been using it, as far as your sick leave, sick family, some people call it sick child, FMLA, that is all still the same. What's been added is an additional bank that has no points. So, but go and watch the video. It thoroughly explains everything.
Yeah, and just piggyback on that. So contract 2022.afalaska.org/TA2 will have all of the stuff here for you to view. For example, the comprehensive summary booklet. There's all the video links are there, the full text TA. You're going to see all the resources there, which is it's designed in a way to be easily absorbed by members, especially the videos and things like that.
Justin, did you have something, or did James answer that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about the
Okay.
resources. And then I think this is just the graphic explaining the split of the banks. But the video is probably the best resource. And then we're going to republish the graphics with just the slight updates from TA2.
So I'll do my very best to give the elevator pitch version of this, but I agree, watch the video because I'm not going to be able to do it justice in just a couple minutes. So as Bryce said, the framework is the current contract and current bank. It basically doesn't change except for going forward, starting in 2026, that there's only 3-point reductions per year rather than the 4. So the quarterly goes down to a trimester. That is really the only difference for the CBA bank. And then the accrual is slightly lower. So instead of the 1 for 10, that's all going into one bank now. It's going to be split where we have 1/3 of it going into the state bank and 2/3 going into the CBA bank. The 1/3 into the state bank, anything that's in there, that TFP is fully protected for so many different events that are not protected under the CBA bank. And I won't go into all the whole list, but there's a lot of other things such as air quality, fire evacuations, things like that are not traditional sick leave. And in addition to that, you can use your state bank for preventative care. So for going to the doctor. There's a few other things that go on with the state bank, but again, watch the video. That is going to be your best resource for the state bank. That's the short version of it.
All right, kind of a follow-up question about the sick banks from Tracy. Can you please explain the verification requirements if the state sick leave bank is used and the leave is 4 days or more?
Yeah, this is a fantastic graphic. So the company has to give us at least 2 days notice about their verification requirement. There's no more than 3 of these verification periods per year, and it's 10 days. And if you go to the doctor during this time, or your medical professional, all of your out-of-pocket medical costs will be reimbursed. And you have 10 days from the initial call to provide your verification. And that's for 4 or more consecutive work days. So if it's 3 days or less, then you are exempt. And don't forget that another benefit of this, of these 2 banks is, let's just say that the company announces a verification period and you already had the idea that you're going to use your state bank. And for whatever reason, you decide, actually, I'd rather not have to go to the doctor. You have up to the end of your next sequence to switch your bank verification or your bank designation from your state bank to your CBA bank, which does not require a doctor's note. So you can actually switch and get out of that verification requirement in those circumstances.
With a bit of a follow-up to that from Rebecca, how will we submit reimbursement during the verification period?
It's a normal expense submittal. So we are posting the recap of these sessions. We will be once we're ready to do so. And Justin, I think I saw that in the chat real quick, but can you just give an update of where we are with posting the video from Q&A 1?
Yeah, so I'll be working on all of that for the rest of today. So the goal is either to start publishing the videos today, later this afternoon, or hopefully early tomorrow.
So a couple last minute questions that just came in. One from Tracy. When will we start receiving state sick leave?
It's a good question. So the company thinks that they can do it soon. Kiki, you've been at some of these implementation meetings. Have they said anything more definitive?
Very, very loose timeline. Their internal goal is June of this year. Whether or not that happens, we don't know. Kind of the way that the IT process works is that, for example, things that they want executed, tested, and released at the end of March have to be submitted at the beginning of January. So whenever we're looking at IT changes, even in the fastest world possible, there's a 3-month lag. All of the stuff for March have already been put in for a majority of the programs that we use. So it's highly unlikely that a majority of the IT changes are going to roll out by a March goal time. And also we won't know if the TA passes until February 28th. So the March window frame has basically elapsed. The next rollout is June for a majority of the programming. So that is the goal, is that the release comes out with the June programming I can't make any promises. I haven't seen any of the testing environment or any of the user stories provided from any of the IT vendors that we used. But that is the desire of management, is that basically there's going to be a mid-year application of the sick leave bank.
All right. Also, a question from Emma: is this a 2 or 3 year contract?
3 years. But meanwhile, we have the JNC will be working on JCBA negotiations during that time. That starts literally next month. So we'll be right back into negotiations.
And I think that strategically, 3 years is probably great on the off chance that this JCBA does take more than 2 years, which there's a possibility it might. There's still one more step to look forward to, step rate change for all flight attendants. So that's nice.
Yeah, initially the company wanted a 1 or 2 year agreement, and we pushed it up to 3 just to make sure that flight attendants were covered and the pay scale would receive increases over the life of the agreement while we're negotiating JCBA. And we don't get caught into that horrible amendable period where nobody gets increases to the scale.
Right. Next question is from Chrissy: will the retro pay be a lump sum?
Yeah, it's one check if that's what we're asking about. It will be on one check.
I think this question is because I think other carriers, they had a certain, like, you had to work you'd get one payment and then work another 6 months to get the rest of your payments. We did not structure our retro like that.
Looks like Brian is having a connection issue, so I'm going to take over for questions until he can restart. This question is from Elena, and she would like to know, could you please explain a bit more about the holiday pay?
Yes, I think Justin has a graphic somewhere, but we in TA1 had a lot of improvements to holiday pay that I think that flight attendants maybe had a desire but didn't know if we could achieve. So we're really proud of that. We recognize that there was a concern that during the holidays, operationally, there tends to be really long layovers, like 48, 56-hour layovers, 60-hour layovers, where flight attendants are on the ground and not being paid holiday pay, the holiday pay premium for that flying. So in TA1, we introduced the holiday RON pay that is in addition to EOR pay. So if you are on the ground for the entire calendar day from midnight to midnight, you'll receive that holiday RON pay. And then in addition, we heard a lot of feedback about the splitting of New Year's Day into New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So in TA2, we just went back, we basically kept current book prior to TA1, which is that it's just the New Year's Day. The whole day qualifies for holiday pay. So in TA2, we were not able to pick up any other holidays, but the current holidays that flight attendants know under this current contract will remain in place. So we also clarified the application of that holiday RON pay, so which is the pay of 4 TFP if on a layover with no duty during the holiday. It'll function like sick pay. So the line holders get paid it if they're scheduled it and it's not achieved. So even if you come block in a little bit late or or subsequently have to leave early for some reason, the reserve is also paid only if they achieve it, just like sick pay. It's not paid if the flight attendant calls in sick, just like sick pay. And it was added to the list of exclusions for pay protection, just like sick pay. So when we think of holiday RON, think of it functioning exactly like sick pay. It's also not going to be included in the line build process.
All right. Charles is asking, if we call out and our trip touches base, would we be able to pick up the trip from where it's at? Like you have a doctor's appointment and need the day off. I believe there, asking if you call out and the trip goes back through your base, if you can pick up partway through.
Can you sip it?
There's always so we currently do have language that says that you can call in well. So you still have the ability to do that. If your trip is available and crew scheduling can meet you back up with your trip at any point, they have the opportunity to do that. Just the way that reserve and self-assignment works now, the likelihood that your trip will still be in open time is pretty slim. So you still have access to that language. You can call in well and request to be rejoined with your original pairing. But whether or not it's in there or whether or not they sipped apart your trip and dropped the turn into the box, maybe a line holder picked it up, maybe someone swapped it, maybe it went in for premium. There's a lot of reasons why you might not be able to be rejoined with your trip, but it's always an option available to you. That part of current book has not changed.
Okay, Kristen is wondering if the retro paycheck will include a 401k deduction.
It will not. The retro is not eligible for 401k or for PBP.
But part of that is because of the definition of eligible contributions in both of those plans.
Okay, Victoria is asking about longevity pay. Is longevity pay $1 every 5 years? And are we looking at getting higher longevity pay in JCBA?
I can take that one. So longevity pay currently in the agreement did not change. It is, well, TA1 removed the $1 of longevity at year 16, but TA2 restored that. Great. So currently now in TA2, it is $1 of longevity at year 16. At year 20, it is an additional 50 cents of longevity. And at year 25, it is another additional 50 cents, which brings it to $2. And then every 5 years after that, it's an additional $1. As far as for JCBA, yeah, sure. I mean, we're going to go after more things in JCBA. I mean, we're asking for the best of both contracts and then more on top of that. But I also want to point out that you have the best longevity pay system in the industry. Nobody else has it going out forever.
Okay, Shirley would like an explanation on how the market rate adjustment works.
Paula would love to take this one.
God, you read my mind.
Mhm.
Okay, so we actually fought really hard for this. Management tried to push it off to JCBA, or if the merger didn't go through, then we would kind of meet and try to figure it out. And it was very clear after TA1 was voted down that the flight attendants demanded that this be part of the contract. So we were very happy to secure this in TA2. So this is how it works. Every anniversary of the contract, an analysis will be done. They'll look at the top of scale rates of all the other carriers out there, the carriers that kind of are in our basket of comparators. And it is Delta, Southwest, JetBlue, and American, and United after they have a new agreement in place, not the current United agreements, which are lower than TA2 rates. And then they'll average all those top of scale rates. There will be a kind of conversion done for non-TFP carriers, and also another conversion done for carriers that don't have boarding pay. So Southwest and JetBlue don't have and United, well, United, I imagine they'll have boarding pay in their new contract. But those rates will be adjusted down by 9.6%, which is the average that boarding pay augments your current rates. So, and then the comparison will be done. And also non-TFP carriers, American, Delta, JetBlue, and United, if they have a new agreement, will be converted at 1.1 TFP for the first year. And then they'll do a trailing 12-month average, looking at your network to see exactly where, looking at the flying that Alaska does, whether the TFP conversion to block is really 1.11 or is it closer to 1.1? It'll just depend. So that conversion, that exercise and conversion rate will be done. And then the comparison will be done, and you'll never get less than any percentage increase that is due for the contractual year, because so we have the 3% increases every year for the contract. So there'll never be less than 3%, but it could be more based on how the market rate adjustment analysis comes out. So we just compare with the other carriers. If that percentage is higher than 3%, the 3% that higher percentage will be applied to the scale, and if not, the 3% will be.
Okay, Tracy would like a description and detail of how jet bridge trading has changed.
Yeah, I can take that one. So for those of you who are familiar with jet bridge trades, you formerly under current book could only trade no earlier than 3 hours prior to departure. And so now we've hopefully made it a little bit easier to process jet bridge trades in that you can now process the trades on the same calendar day of the earliest flight departure of the portion of the sequence that's being traded. So if you have an all-nighter, you can trade that as early as, you know, midnight 01 on that same day if you wanted to do the jet bridge trade. So that should allow for a lot more flexibility. We did keep that 3-hour departure for anything that departs between midnight and 2:59 a.m. just because it's a little bit more difficult for scheduling to process those trades. So the 3-hour, no earlier than 3-hour requirement is still part of anything that departs between midnight and 2:59 a.m. So if the departure's after 2:59 a.m., you can do it on any time during the same calendar day.
Well, we have 2 more of these sessions left. Anyone who would like to join us can come back for another session on Wednesday. This will be in the afternoon at 3 o'clock Pacific time, Wednesday the 5th. And then we have one more after that, again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time on Friday the 7th. As Paula mentioned earlier, polls open on February the 11th, close on the 28th. And it looks like we do have a couple more questions in the chat.
Thanks, Jeff. Our next question is from Tracy. Will there be retirement insurance?
Trying to think of like what retirement insurance is if we're talking about healthcare or something like that. But no, there is not retirement insurance in TA2.
Well, there is the retirement insurance that's in the current contract, which is you can use your sick leave to
Yeah, the
extend.
LOA.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not, it's for a
But there is
specific
no
time frame.
Yeah, there is no retiree insurance.
Right. There is the ability to retire early. So if between the ages of 62 and 65, that you can utilize your sick leave to supplement or to purchase your healthcare during that time.
All right. We also have a question from Melissa. If you fly A and international, how much more do you get paid?
So I can answer this one. This is kind of clearly laid out in section 21. So A pay went from $2 to $4. So that's $2 right there. That's an increase. International pay was $1, increase to $1.50. So if you want to look at the aggregate for every hour you work as a international, it's $2.50 more. Yeah, so section 21 has both these pay components with the exact dollar figure for both.
All right, we have a question from Elena. What is the best way to find out if a flight attendant is current on union dues?
I think I'll maybe Bryce.
I was trying to find my mute button, but yeah, so you can reach out to any of your local officers. You can also, I don't have the website pulled up, but you can get in touch with International. But just reach out to your local officers. There you go. Thank you, Brian. Every base has the same email address. It is the base letters. So for example, San Diego, san.lecs.afalaska.org. That'll go to me as the president, and then the same for all the other bases.
Right. Question from Diana. In the JCBA, will you be negotiating all-nighter pay? I believe some carriers pay for working red-eye flights.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Diana. Southwest just secured Redeye pay in their last contract for the first time, and we'll definitely be adding that. Hawaiian does do some back of the clock flying, and we'll definitely be chasing down that pay for that type of flying.
Great. And that's the last question in the queue at the moment.
Let's try unmuting. That helps. I'm going to go ahead and close out the session then. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it. And if you want to join us again, we have 2 more of the sessions, as we mentioned earlier, on Wednesday and again on Friday. Polls open on the 11th, close the 28th. Make sure to vote. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good one.